Aaron Feldman and Lena Morales never imagined their lives would collide in a way that would shatter a prestigious Manhattan hospital. One was a celebrated heart surgeon, trusted by families across the city. The other, a dedicated Filipina nurse, driven by skill and survival. What began as admiration and secrecy spiraled into betrayal, manipulation, and tragedy that would cost lives and expose a system built on power and silence. Dr. Aaron Feldman was known across Manhattan as a miracle worker. His name appeared on medical journals, charity boards, and hospital banners. Patients waited months just to get an appointment with him. Families trusted him with their loved ones' hearts, believing his steady hands could fix anything broken inside the chest. Inside the hospital, his presence carried weight. When he entered a room, conversations softened and staff moved faster. His success brought prestige, funding, and national attention to the hospital, making him nearly untouchable. Outside the operating room, his life appeared just as perfect. He lived in an upscale apartment overlooking the city, shared with his wife, a respected art consultant, and their 2 children who attended elite schools. Weekend charity events and formal dinners filled his calendar. Friends admired his discipline and balance. No one questioned how he managed to excel at everything at once. The image he presented was carefully maintained and rarely challenged. Yet behind this polished surface, cracks quietly formed. Long hours became excuses rather than necessities. Late-night surgeries were sometimes replaced with empty operating rooms and locked offices. He spent more time in restricted hospital areas where few people passed after dark. His phone was always face down, his messages quickly deleted. He had learned how to control every detail of his environment, both at work and at home. The hospital itself played a role in protecting his image. Administrators ignored small complaints and brushed aside minor concerns involving his behavior. His results mattered more than questions. As long as lives were saved and money flowed in, silence was rewarded. In that silence, Dr. Feldman grew comfortable taking risks far beyond medicine, unaware that the reputation shielding him would eventually become the very thing that exposed him. Lena Morales arrived in New York carrying more hope than luggage. She had left behind her family in the Philippines after years of working in crowded public hospitals. Manhattan felt overwhelming, but the hospital quickly became her anchor. She adapted fast, memorizing hallways, protocols, and unspoken rules. Her calm under pressure made senior nurses take notice. Patients felt reassured by her steady presence, even during the most frightening moments. Her work ethic set her apart. Lena volunteered for extra shifts, rarely complained, and treated every case with equal care. She understood the cost of mistakes and the value of discipline. Supervisors praised her accuracy and focus, and within months, she was assigned to the cardiac surgery unit. It was a high-pressure environment where errors could be fatal. Many nurses struggled there, but Lena remained composed. Dr. Feldman noticed her during a long and complicated surgery. She anticipated his needs without being told and corrected small issues before they became problems. From that day on, he requested her assistance more often. Their interactions stayed professional, but the attention was unusual. Lena felt honored and nervous at the same time. Being chosen by the hospital's most respected surgeon felt like validation of her sacrifice. As weeks passed, their schedules began to overlap frequently. She was assigned to late-night procedures and emergency cases led by him. These hours were quieter, with fewer staff and less oversight. The hospital after midnight felt like a different world, filled with dim lights and echoing corridors. Lena began spending more time in private prep rooms and secure areas, unaware that her growing presence in Dr. Feldman's orbit would soon pull her into a situation far more dangerous than any medical emergency she had ever faced. What began as long hours working side by side slowly shifted into something unspoken and dangerous. The hospital's quiet corners offered privacy, and routine tasks turned into lingering moments. Lena trusted Dr. Feldman's guidance, believing his interest came from respect and care. He shared carefully chosen details about his life, presenting himself as trapped and misunderstood. Lena listened, feeling sympathy grow into emotional attachment. The relationship stayed hidden behind professional roles. Their interactions were masked by schedules, surgical checklists, and late-night calls labeled as emergencies. Lena feared being judged or losing her position, so she told no one. Her immigration status made her especially vulnerable, and she believed silence was the safest choice. Dr. Feldman controlled the pace, deciding when they met and when they didn't. The imbalance between them shaped every step forward. Over time, Lena's expectations began to change. She imagined stability and honesty, believing the secrecy was temporary. Dr. Feldman, however, treated the affair as an escape from responsibility. He erased digital traces, avoided public spaces, and ensured nothing connected them outside the hospital. He became more cautious, while Lena became more hopeful. The stress began affecting her work. Sleep became difficult, and her focus slipped during long shifts. Small mistakes were corrected before harm was done, but the pressure weighed heavily on her. The hospital remained unaware or unwilling to notice, as long as procedures ran smoothly. By the time Lena realized the emotional cost of the affair, she was deeply entangled. Trust had replaced caution, and dependence replaced independence. What she believed was a private connection had become a trap built on secrecy and power. The hospital that once represented opportunity now felt like a maze with no clear exit, and the consequences of that hidden relationship were quietly moving closer. The turning point arrived quietly but carried enormous weight. Lena confirmed her pregnancy during a routine clinic visit, far from the hospital where everything had begun. The news filled her with fear and cautious hope. She believed this would force honesty and clarity. Instead, it shattered the fragile balance she had been living in. When Dr. Feldman learned the truth, his behavior changed almost immediately. He became distant and controlled. Their overlapping schedules were altered without explanation. Messages went unanswered. Meetings that once felt urgent were suddenly impossible. Lena sensed that she was no longer a priority, but a liability. She struggled to understand how quickly warmth had turned into avoidance. The future she had imagined began to collapse. Lena considered her options carefully. Returning home felt like failure, but staying silent felt dangerous. She sought guidance through internal hospital resources, hoping for protection without exposure. The process was slow and confusing. Each step required documentation, approvals, and waiting. Meanwhile, her condition became harder to hide. Coworkers noticed her fatigue and nausea. Quiet speculation began spreading through the unit. The pressure affected her concentration. She double-checked every task, terrified of making mistakes that could be used against her. Dr. Feldman, on the other hand, worked to separate himself completely. He limited contact, delegated responsibilities, and ensured witnesses were always present when interaction was unavoidable. His reputation remained intact, while Lena felt increasingly isolated. As weeks passed, fear replaced hope. She realized the hospital system was not built to protect someone in her position. Power, status, and silence worked together. What had started as a private crisis now threatened to become public, and Lena sensed that once the truth surfaced, the consequences would be far more severe than she had imagined. The death happened on a morning that began like any other. The patient was stable, the procedure routine, and the operating room prepared according to protocol. Dr. Feldman led the surgery with his usual confidence, and the team followed without question. Lena assisted as assigned, focused and careful. No one expected the outcome to change within minutes. Midway through the operation, the patient's condition declined rapidly. Vital signs dropped without a clear cause. Efforts to stabilize the heart failed, and the room shifted from calm to urgency. Despite every measure being taken, the patient did not survive. The silence that followed felt heavier than the alarms that had filled the room moments earlier. Staff exchanged uncertain looks, unsure how a standard procedure had ended so badly. An internal review began almost immediately. The hospital labeled the death a rare complication and moved quickly to close the case. Documentation was finalized within days. The family was given a brief explanation, and condolences were issued. Officially, there was nothing more to investigate. Lena felt uneasy. Details from the surgery did not match what she remembered. Medication timings appeared different in the records. Certain entries were missing or adjusted. She questioned her own memory at first, blaming exhaustion and stress. But the more she reviewed the logs, the more inconsistencies appeared. Quiet doubts grew into alarm. She considered raising concerns, but hesitated. The atmosphere in the hospital was tense. Dr. Feldman returned to work almost immediately, supported by administrators who treated the incident as closed. Lena noticed subtle changes around her. Access to certain files became limited. Supervisors stopped engaging in casual conversation. It felt as though an invisible line had been drawn. The patient's death marked more than a tragic loss. It was the moment Lena understood that something deeper was wrong. The hospital's rush to protect its image had created cracks in the truth, and those cracks were beginning to reveal a reality far more disturbing than a single surgical failure. Lena could no longer ignore the warning signs. The inconsistencies she had noticed lingered in her thoughts during every shift. She began paying closer attention to details others overlooked. Medication cabinets, digital charts, and surgical schedules became patterns rather than routines. She noticed how certain records changed after procedures were completed. Timestamps shifted, and notes appeared hours later, written under someone else's credentials. Carefully, Lena started documenting what she saw. She wrote observations in a private notebook kept outside the hospital. She memorized dates and sequences instead of saving files that could be traced. When possible, she compared printed records with digital versions. The differences were subtle but consistent. Each discovery deepened her fear, but also strengthened her resolve to protect herself. Rumors began circulating quietly among staff. Some nurses sensed manipulation but avoided involvement. Others warned Lena to stay quiet for her own safety. The hospital culture discouraged questions, especially when they involved senior doctors. Lena felt increasingly isolated, aware that her position offered little protection. Her pregnancy made the situation more urgent, turning caution into necessity. Dr. Feldman sensed the shift. His behavior toward Lena grew colder and more calculated. He limited her assignments and ensured she worked under supervision. At the same time, administrative pressure increased. Her contract was suddenly reviewed for minor issues that had never been raised before. Mandatory meetings appeared on her schedule without explanation. Despite the risks, Lena continued collecting information. She knew that silence would leave her vulnerable to blame if another tragedy occurred. The hospital's quiet corridors felt hostile now, filled with watchful eyes and unspoken threats. Each step forward felt dangerous, yet stepping back felt worse. Lena was standing at the edge of a truth powerful enough to destroy careers, and she understood that once crossed, there would be no turning back. The storm arrived without warning, drenching the city and flooding streets within hours. Inside the hospital, the weather felt distant, sealed away by thick walls and steady routines. Lena was assigned to a different wing that night, far from the cardiac unit. The shift was unusually tense, with staff shortages and constant emergency calls. As the rain intensified, the building's lights flickered briefly, then stabilized. Minutes later, alarms echoed through the corridors. Power failed in one section of the hospital, plunging several rooms into darkness. Backup generators activated, but not all systems responded as expected. One critical care unit remained unstable, including an operating room where Dr. Feldman was treating a high-risk patient. Communication systems lagged, and internal calls went unanswered. Lena heard fragments of information as staff rushed past. Procedures were interrupted, monitors shut down, and manual backups were scrambled into place. The hospital shifted into crisis mode. When power was finally restored, the damage had already been done. The patient under Dr. Feldman's care did not survive the blackout. Unlike the previous death, this one could not be dismissed easily. Too many systems had failed at once. Maintenance logs showed unexplained delays in generator activation. Security footage from key hallways went missing during the outage. The timing raised questions no internal committee could ignore. Emergency investigators were called to assess the infrastructure failure. The hospital's leadership appeared shaken, no longer confident in quiet resolutions. Staff whispered openly for the first time. Lena felt a mix of fear and grim clarity. She knew this incident would reopen old wounds and expose hidden patterns. As the rain cleared by morning, the hospital stood under scrutiny it had long avoided. What was once treated as coincidence now looked like design. The blackout became a turning point, transforming private suspicions into a public investigation and placing every secret within reach of the light. The investigation moved quickly and without warning. External authorities arrived with warrants, cutting through the hospital's usual layers of protection. Offices were searched, servers copied, and staff questioned in private rooms. Administrators who once dismissed concerns now avoided eye contact. The atmosphere shifted from controlled confidence to quiet panic. Digital analysts uncovered a pattern hidden within the hospital systems. Backup data revealed deleted entries, altered timestamps, and repeated access from the same secure account. These changes coincided with patient deaths previously labeled as unavoidable complications. Technical safeguards meant to prevent such edits had been bypassed. The evidence pointed steadily toward a single source. Lena was approached as a key witness. She provided her notes and timelines, which matched the digital findings. Her documentation filled gaps investigators had struggled to explain. The relationship between her and Dr. Feldman surfaced during the review, followed by evidence of coercion and misuse of authority. Investigators noted how her work access had been restricted after the first death, suggesting intentional isolation. As more staff were interviewed, long-held fears were finally voiced. Nurses described being pressured to overlook irregularities. Technicians recalled unexplained instructions during late-night procedures. Maintenance records showed manual overrides ordered without clear justification. Each statement added weight to the growing case. The hospital's attempt to manage the narrative collapsed under mounting facts. Media reports leaked before official announcements could be made. Headlines spread across the city, transforming a respected institution into the center of a criminal inquiry. Donations were frozen, and elective surgeries were suspended. For Lena, the truth brought no relief, only uncertainty. Her safety became a concern, and protective measures were arranged. She understood that revealing the truth came at a cost, but silence would have cost more. What began as a hidden affair had exposed a system built on fear, power, and unchecked control, now unraveling under relentless scrutiny. The arrest happened quietly, without cameras or dramatic scenes. Dr. Feldman was taken into custody as he arrived for work, his access badge deactivated before he reached the operating floor. News of the arrest spread through the hospital in minutes. Staff stood frozen in hallways, struggling to reconcile the man they admired with the accusations now made public. Prosecutors laid out a disturbing case. They alleged that Dr. Feldman had manipulated medical systems to create controlled failures, disguising deliberate actions as complications. Evidence showed he altered procedures and delayed responses to protect his reputation and maintain control. The affair with Lena was presented as part of a larger pattern of abuse, used to silence and intimidate when his authority was threatened. The hospital faced immediate consequences. Federal agencies launched parallel investigations into safety violations and administrative misconduct. Senior leaders resigned under pressure, and oversight boards were dissolved. Lawsuits from victims' families piled up quickly, exposing years of negligence. The institution that once shielded its star surgeon now struggled to survive. Public reaction was swift and unforgiving. Medical associations suspended Dr. Feldman's license pending trial. Former colleagues distanced themselves, issuing statements of shock and betrayal. His family retreated from public view as scrutiny intensified. The life he built on prestige collapsed in days. Lena remained under protection as proceedings advanced. She was no longer viewed as a problem, but as a crucial witness. Her courage shifted public focus from scandal to accountability. The case forced conversations about power imbalances and silence within medical institutions. As court dates approached, it became clear that the damage extended far beyond one man. Trust in the system had been broken. The fall of Dr. Feldman was not just the end of a career, but the exposure of a structure that allowed harm to hide behind excellence for far too long. The aftermath left the hospital struggling to reclaim its identity. Leadership had been dismantled, and a new administration was appointed under federal oversight. Policies were rewritten to prevent the abuses that had occurred, including stricter supervision of senior staff and improved whistleblower protections. Still, trust was slow to return. Patients hesitated, families questioned safety, and the city's media continuously highlighted past failures. The shadow of Dr. Feldman's actions lingered in every corridor, a reminder that skill and reputation could mask danger. Lena, having given birth, began rebuilding her life far from Manhattan. She moved to a smaller city, finding work in a clinic where protocols were transparent and staff respected each other's voices. The trauma of her experience remained, but she found a sense of purpose in helping patients while ensuring accountability and safety. Her courage had exposed a dangerous pattern, and her testimony had been pivotal in securing justice. Dr. Feldman's trial captivated the public. Detailed records, survivor accounts, and Lena's documentation revealed the full extent of his misconduct. The verdict was decisive. He was convicted on multiple counts, and his sentence reflected both criminal and professional responsibility. Appeals failed, and his reputation was permanently destroyed. The hospital faced financial penalties, and reforms continued for years afterward. The city debated systemic issues within healthcare institutions, acknowledging how power and secrecy could create deadly consequences. For the families affected, closure was partial. Lawsuits provided financial relief, but could not replace lost loved ones. The hospital established memorials to honor victims, a symbolic gesture acknowledging mistakes. The tragedy became a cautionary tale across the nation, studied in medical schools and legal programs alike. In the end, the story was not just about a hidden affair or a single surgeon's hubris. It was a lesson in vigilance, accountability, and the human cost of silence in powerful institutions.